up and just watch the game between MNM and Secret as it unfolded. And again, gonna mention it, it's been 1 year and 8 days since these two team names collided for a European League spot. And now they are colliding for a Six Invitational spot. With MNM having the first ban, it will be Hibana removed. Okay, I understand that.
It's going to make things, I mean, we can always sort of talk about how the extension across the top corridor on Kanto Corner is probably the biggest pull out there. There's too much play that you can do with Selmas around the corridor underneath it, but also the limitation of Selmas on hatches is going to be that sort of signifying factor. And, you know, it's Hibana. It's a standard removal. Thatcher sort of goes alongside that.
Yeah, Thatcher is, well, I think 80%, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. You know, it's close to it. At least percent removed of the games. Not really seeing them quite a lot. As the next defender gets removed, it could be a Cade. No, it's a Valkyrie instead. So they leave the opportunity to MNM to decide whether or not they do want to have the Cade in play. Of course, is bypassed by an attacker like Maverick. But if you don't have one, yeah, there you have it. I was going to say, you're not going to be able to use things like the can openers.
It's limitations, and it's the stretch of what Bank is, because the reason it's the first up isn't because it is Kavana's strongest map, it is because it is MNM's constant ban. We sort of have that as that statistic here is it one that they just haven't prepared? They will have a game here. Is it just a bad game? Because it's the sort of asterisk on this is it's not only the fact that it's their constant removal, but it's the fact that these two teams will know each other. They will have a little bit more of an insight than your sort of standard levels because of the fact that they play each other in structured leagues inside a region.
Yeah, exactly. They play each other in Yukin, of course, which, I mean, Kovana, for example, wouldn't be giving it their all, their 100%. MNM had to some extent, for the Challenger League qualifiers back in the day, but a lot of time has passed, and some of these teams have had a break, whereas others had a little bit more of a busy schedule. With that, I'm looking at MNM, of course, and there has definitely been a lot of time to reinvent some of these maps. However, when a map is an insta-ban all the time, think of BDS and Villa, for example, it is often to be expected that that is not their strongest map. And, well, we will wait and see. I mean, there's going to be a total of 12, 15 rounds that will show us whether or not it is a weak MNM map, or, well, 7 if it's definitely. And MNM got the opportunity now to show what they have prepared on this map that they haven't played in such a long time.
So the first approach is one here against open area, and you're looking at a pretty standard setup. It's a big control of information with that mobility. Look at the Mozzie, look at the way that can be played alongside the Vigil, and most notably probably the Oryx. It's this sort of synergy of let's explore Bank, let's cause some problems as roamers, which, to be fair, the way Kavana often dealt with this on their defense was just lean in aggressively. They played a lot of sort of players against the aggressive play on both attack and defense. I'm curious to see if this is the game that MNM has sort of learnt from and why they think they might be able to take those couple extra rounds, which, to be honest, were the story that was written yesterday. It was a very close game between Kavana and MNM across the first two maps. We didn't see three, but still, there's Solotov. Opens it up here on the top of square and waits for the drone to sort of play again. That denial of intel, you can see that there's still an extension, there's still places to go, but it's a very early loss here.
It's definitely a very early loss, something they will not be happy with on the side of Kavana. Of course, it is still quite early in the matchup. You can afford to lose your first map if necessary, but a jump back comes in from Solotov. He's allowed to pick up yet another kill and rotate all the way back to the front door of the Bank. And, well, as they're trying to chase him down, he already made it back to the inside. And now the question is there going to be anything? Watch out! Upside down repel on the skylight. Grizzly locks him off, and as a result, they at least manage to find a trade.
I mean, it was a bit of a cautious approach. You usually assume if you take that sort of daredevil leap, you're going to be dropped, and whether it's inside the door or outside, it still gives them plenty of time to get set up. There's one more for Tyrant upstairs, cleaning up inside Janitors as Benja goes down. That's 2 big players, 2 entries, and 2 fraggers that have been taken out of the equation, leaving just the hard destruction here. A bit of an explosion, and as the Selma gets long arms towards the potential of that mirror window, I assume the Mute Jammer has stopped any of that getting popped open, so Griffith's going to look for a slightly different alternate angle here. A newer take, there it is, caught out, but stopped again. That Mute Jammer means that is no progress to be made.
The first one might have landed a little bit short and actually didn't even reach that wall, as the second one definitely will. But the Mute Jammer, you mention it, is the big problem maker here. A 2-on-4 situation. cowana not really in the best opportunity here to pick up this very first round, but we gotta mention it. It's only map 1, round 1 in this best of 5. Losing this is not the end of your series, and as Anarchic is gonna be the last man standing, he needs to go for an incredible 1v4 clutch here if he wants to land this round towards cowana.
Well, it's not going to be through that route at least. Pops the flash over the top and it finds one. 20 seconds though, and a hot hop through isn't going to lead to too much success. He knows he's pushing against the wire at this point. It was a strong opening from MNM, but we've got to take into consideration how it was sort of built. Sloth so early tried to find a fight in Janitors that they were just prepared for.
They tried to go for that early fight indeed, and the Janitor player just a little bit quicker. Solotov able to swing back and win that gunfight, not just once, but I believe he managed to get 2 up there. And that definitely helps. At least the Monty is being shown now. Benja is looking to bait it out. It's not going to be a 6-pick. It might be 6-picked out, as it's an operator you would normally hide for a bit. Going to see if that's the case. Yeah, there he goes. Remove to a Twitch. So, of course, the Famas will be making an entry. A good operator to use against a Mute, a Jaeger, and a Mira, for example, as all those gadgets are quite vulnerable to the laser. And almost playing on that bottom floor right now. That means that a Monty wouldn't have been the weirdest choice, but maybe the extra piece of utility you're getting from the shock drone works out a bit better.
With the highlight clip there of Solotov just in the bottom corner, it's worth sort of highlighting him as a player, because yesterday in the showdown between these 2 teams, he was one of the missing elements that came around a little bit later on in the day that really started to define the play here for MNM. And if he becomes a bigger force here, it becomes a response for cowana and Benja, who are the 2 big pop-outs and pop-offs of the previous showdown. It just takes one more element to start to really bring some pieces together. Again, we cannot highlight just how close their showdown was yesterday for a 2-0 scoreline. It could have been, but shoulda, woulda, didn't.
It's all past tense at this point, right? So it's like, it doesn't matter anymore. Surely both these teams, they know it was a 2-0, but it's a full new best of 5 currently that we are located in. And MNM have won that first round, and they will be more than happy with that, but they quickly need to recenter themselves. There is still a long way to go, especially after that early loss against cowana, especially after the long route they had to take to get here through that lower bracket. cowana is looking to go aggressive onto these main stairs here. It's Benja that might lead the charge for the F2.
They're trying to find an angle, and they went instead with this person to back up the player last time rather than the previous drone. But here, as they feel like they've got just enough control to start filtering those PC utility further down. We saw Sloth hold that angle before. Again, some safety, some semblance and solace of safety, and well, they think that they can sort of build behind this now. Clearing out open, making sure they can get control of the hatches to cover the plant potentially. It's one of the conversations that we had when we had Bank shown a little bit yesterday, is opening up your plan B, looking at the full stretch of things so you don't cause the problems or suffer them the same way Vitality did when they hit a brick wall on one approach and very quickly had to change to the second.
Openings and rotations are being made using those breaching charges, of course. It allows you for quicker mobility through the sites, through the map, just to make sure that you, well, if you need to rotate around, it takes you a little bit less time. 2 Salmons being used to open up the vault hatch, whilst Exothermics managed to pick up a kill onto Solotov somehow, not quite sure. That is quite unfortunate for the side of MNM, but it's an entry frag, and nonetheless, that cowana will be taking more than happily.
Was that under the hatch?
It was under the hatch.
Yeah, it's a surprising loss. I guess it's one of the ones where he trusted he wouldn't get as much damage, but calculating that stuff sometimes is a little bit of mad science. The swing aggression from Sloth is rewarded with the body just over the half wall, and he's almost waiting for the return because you know that they're trapped in that corner. The drone had all the intel on Nello, and that was the play but Sloth felt confident enough to go for the swing and the width with it, waiting for the approach from Garage. There's still obviously that body and that player inside that dropped hatch, but they're not going anywhere. Another drone reveal, another bit of movement, and another body falls for MNM as Benja gets the swing round, suffered, and finally finds a bit of revenge. Tyrant with a second and one more. It's suddenly a 2 versus 2. Tries to clear their way back up, but as suddenly cowana are trying to strike their way into the heart of the site itself, it's a bit of a bite back. The spray down the gold vault corridor goes away though, and Benja locks in a double.
Yeah, gets the final 2 kills with the F2 here as both of them lined up. It was a drop shot that transitioned into an ADS, and both those kills came from the same spray. A 1-1 cowana, they had a big advantage, but almost managed to give it away towards MNM. At the end of the round there is the Maestro, of course, able to pick up a couple of those kills. Leaves us now in round number 3. Both these teams equalized in terms of the score. But we keep on saying it, such a long way to go. And already we're seeing MNM punishing some of the mistakes that cowana's making, just not to the fullest extent.
It was a sort of play there from cowana, where as we said, they were sniffing out areas, they were setting up their rotations, they had some presence around on the far side, and we saw the push came from multifacets. At the end of it, there was 2 players that came over from the server side and 2 or 3 that tried to make those drop hatches work, if you include Garage, where the extra player was. It put MNM in a bit of a tricky position, because they weren't entirely sure where they wanted to lock it off. Add in the fact that there was a Twitch drone just buried in the corner giving all the pings, and it took a little bit of bold swing there from Nello. Where is it, users? Where is the drone?
Trying to sniff it out.
Trying to find it, trying to spot it. There's the second one.
Chasing that one. Took his attention away.
It sacrificed itself.
It did definitely sacrifice itself for the protection of that other drone.
How noble. 5 seconds remaining. So, 1-1, and they're going to double down back on the same site as before. Generally similar ideas here. You have a lot of that grab of intel here. With Mirror on the board and with the chance with the Pulse too, you can try and claw some pieces together. Let's put an exothermic charge kill to a side and assume that isn't happening again, because that's one of those rare instances.
It's one of those like surprising moments where the exothermic pops off and you see 5v4 in your screen. You're like, what just happened? Did anybody take a gunfight? And you see the kill feed popping up, realizing it was just the man being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Sloth again, spearhead here off the attack on top of the main stairs is use those drones in a efficient way, looking to see whether or not he's going to be able to find someone.
Dropping down over the white stairs and steadying themselves towards the same hatches as before. They're probably not going to be able to have the same aggression that they lent in on that hatch inside the elevators, because it is, for a team that's aware of it, an absolute death trap. You're assuming somebody has your number and has an idea that you've hit that hatch as well. They had a drone that led them into some intel and some confidence to go down there, but it takes that drone. And you hope, from MNM's side, they're going to be a little more keyed in to that approach as you see bullets start to come up from underneath it. Oh yeah, they're keyed in, tuned out, and that's the job of the Pulse here. Waiting for the pings in the approach, uses all the ideas of everybody that's sort of trying to put bodies around the fight that starts to explode there on the extension around the top of green.
Definitely some damage being done as well. Solotov taking a couple of bullets down up until 20, 30 HP, and as now the exothermics are starting to be used to open up the hatches even further. It's Tyrant and is seeing that happen through that Black Mirror window. Second one opened up as well, allowing a potential drop into the red hallway. First, the cowanas getting themselves into different positions. It looks like we might be seeing a backdrop to occur. Use the elevator, use the vault drop, as Twitch drones failed to actually get rid of the mirror. Oh no, succeeded actually.
Just had it.
The first one succeeded. There's still a second one, however, dug in a little bit deeper.
Well, talking about being dug in, Solotov isn't removed by a breaching charge, but is from the swing coming around onto the garage side. You can see there's a bit of a response here. If they can lock down cowana, which they do, Tyrant, with an important kill there, just keep some of the focus and attention on only 2 sides and maybe a couple of hatches, but still, it's less than having them entirely start to swan and swamp around you. There is still a little bit of an angle here, but not enough to get their way through, and there is Neo. proving that they can still make some work out of that. Goes potentially for a bit of attention retake, but here comes the hot drop. Benja right inside the site, tries to drop into a fight, but can't quite find the connection. It's on the door. The diffuser goes cold, and Sloth trying to get there as quick as he can, but not quick enough. Big bullets, big guns laid in, but a handful of seconds. No time for that diffuser. Won't need it anyway. MNM find their second.
Small mistake there, maybe running too deep in with that diffuser, missing the opportunity to actually go for that plant as the kill came through, but you just said it, not that much time left. Cowana really left it to the last couple of seconds where MNM was able to strike back. And Neo, of course, being able to pick up the kill to the hatch as well is a big problem. Suddenly there is the opportunity that that player goes up onto a big flank, takes the hatches from above and shuts you down as, well, you are going for that plant or that post plant. And that leaves MNM with a 1-round lead for now here on Bank. So far on this defense, it doesn't quite show yet that they have not played this map in a long while. Steph open area is going to be next here on this first floor, where MNM is trying to extend their lead into a 3-1 to make sure that they at least get something good out of their defensive half.
Do you remember?
Do I remember what?
When Open was a bit of a meme pick with the site.
Yes, I do remember. I don't exactly know what changed though.
Well, I think
was it the beams that changed direction from?
I think it's a mix of things, because once upon a time, if you've sort of only joined Siege over the past, say, 6 to 12 months, Open was never really chosen as a play space. It was just awkward. There was too much that they could sort of drop in. You would see control from over on stock hatch, and at that point, a lot was sort of gone. But steadily, and it wasn't an instant. It wasn't like a click, and it's become a big choice. But for a lot of teams, it's really grown in popularity because of the extensions I think it allows you to offer.
Yeah.
You always or often see an opening into the sort of archive side. You'll see quad wall locked onto square. You'll potentially see some roamers on the top, but it's not always a sort of necessity. It's kind of a bait and a play of space and time up there.
I never really got why Archives was that good though, because there's a lot of verticality onto Archives and Tellers, right? You can basically open up the entire side, and whilst you can open quite a lot on the open area, it's not quite as much as it would be on the other side. Nella loses the mirror window, unfortunately, but stops it from becoming a rotation. Could have been a bit quicker there, but maybe lacked the information whether or not Grizzly was still active within the lobby, because that could have lost him his life. Mirror window gone. That is at least a small win here for Cowana.
I think that was it. He was concerned that there was still a presence inside. It's a bit of a bold take, and you know, you want to sort of keep that for as long as possible. But talking of, the fight's up top and just pulls out the pistol before Benja can get a bit of a refrag and a trade there. It's a bit of a cost, but well paid potentially. Sloth is gone. In the meantime, they were able to take care of Solotov and now Usus on the opposite side of the map, separates Nello pretty intensely from the rest of the play. You can see, as I said, that rotation, that opening is coming through via Archives in the little box room. They're trying to pay some heed towards the approach of Gogona on top. You'll quite often see a pulse played in exactly this location where Nello is for just this purpose, because it's not instant to try and get rid of Nello, but it is instant to try and swing onto those windows.
Yeah, for sure, and often a Nitro gets used as well, pre-placed after you know where they're hiding out, and you know, that could land you a kill here if Gogona would have been swung in by now, but well, since it's a mirror, has a C4, just not the cardiac sensor that will be giving you that information. There is still a hold, however, from the side of MNM. It's only 2 men strong, but it could still hold at the end. There is still that Nitro that could be tossed in, but Gogona holding this long and tight angle is going to be trying to make it as impossible as possible here for Nello, who is still stuck here. And now he's the last man standing. He gets spotted out, takes a lot of damage, but the Nitro is not allowed to blow up. Grizzly gets that final kill from the lobby he was afraid of. That was being contested earlier.
2-2. Back and forth we go. Similarities to what we saw yesterday, where I think it was only in the second map where Cowana were able to actually break that deadlock and string the impossible 3 rounds together. It was otherwise very, very even-handed and back and forth between the two teams. I feel like we're going to see a little bit more of that as the day progresses. Start from an open one more time. They're sort of doubling down on sites. MNM believe that they have the answer, but they would have expected this if they came through on the side of the bracket. It's the thing of the best of 5. It's you're not really going to be able to hide much.
There is only 2 maps that will be hidden to some extent. However, often one of the maps you won't be playing is one of your own best, considering that one will be banned out. And now, 5-on-5 situation again. As the round has restarted, we are headed towards the same site. Not that it proved to be so successful for MNM the last time around. I mean, they lost the mirror window early. They lost players early, not really being able to put up much of a response to the side of Cowana. And now they're going to rerun it. And that must mean there has been some small, minor issues that they think they can resolve for this round. And as a result, just win it.
Just win it.
Just win it.
Oh, it's easy.
Just 5 bullets, all you need.
That's all you need.
This is the famous saying.
Yeah. Takes
or 1 if you're Kali and you line them all up. But
I don't think...
No,
I mean, it could happen, but I would have severe questions about
Of the
anything
strategy.
that happened in that game. Jesus. Hasn't quite been able to dig his teeth into this game as of yet. Tyrant has led on, but to be honest, he was the standout player in the previous showdown between these 2 teams, just sort of waiting for a bit more of an effect. And I said the important possibility of Solotov showing up, but it's also extended to users. We need big guns from the side of MNM because with Benja, who's already been able to sort of lead into this game as well, and the threat that's always lurking, sure, Gogona had a standout, but it's a big play and you need to have a response here.
Well, this is smart. There's
It's
rotation right
smart,
next
it's
to
a
it.
bit of a tricky play. Doesn't quite get the catch they wanted though.
No, wanted to get it through the rotation, but unfortunately fell a bit short, hit a part of the wall, and now Slough is finding himself into a place where he could be spotted by the mirror window, but doesn't really have a place to go except for up. And that's exactly what he will do, just using that nut, using that hell detecting scanner presence device, I'm not quite sure what it's called, to not be spotted by any of the cameras.
This is a bit of a major difference between the hold previously, is there was 2 players up top. I believe that's where Solotov got dropped as well. This time only 1, and they're Tyrant holding down inside stock. They have a vague idea that there's a player up here. We saw the yellow pings, we can see the cautious movement, but it's a bit of a peculiar corner to have dug yourself into, and if it goes as a late moment play, it could be absolutely meteoric, as could an untested and contested Nook that seems pretty steady. There's still a ping around on that stock side. Okay, yeah, they're aware, and that puts Tyrant in a very tricky situation. If they desperately wanted to, they have the C4 to potentially try and get themselves some space. There it goes. There's no hatch to rotate. It's a pre-fire on the window. It's going to be a swing, and almost finds the fight, concerned about the pop over from the top of the building, but it's an easy pick up there with the damage already done. And Arctic finally finishes the hunt, but 2 minutes gone for that control.
Yeah, a lot of time wasted. The hatch, of course, was reinforced. There was no way for him to drop back towards the side. So all you could really do there is, after he gets spotted, waste as much time as possible. Maybe take a gunfight here or there and ease down the opponents for your teammates. But none of that really happened. Just the time wasting that we saw. And as Benja is slowly starting to descend these stairs, it is Gorgona that picks up the kill onto Solotov, who was out there in the crosshairs of Benja. And now the verticality comes up as Usus jumps up to the top floor, using that Oryx ability to potentially go for a late flank.
Oh, it's a bit noisy, but it could be huge.
No.
The gun control here as he's going to swing around the corner. The pings, there's 1, there's 2! Usus utilizes an ability that is always so good on paper, but in print so rarely seen. Here's a 3rd, stacking up through the hole in the door, and there it is! Rewarded
Usus!
Usus locks it down, and the only thing he is trading is ticks on dead bodies of Cowana players.
I was going to say, it's the first time I see that ability being used and instantly leading to round success due to the trigger discipline he had. The sound they didn't know. He wasn't up there, at least so they thought. And he hunts down 4 of the members of Cowana as he drops that diffuser and they start flooding towards him. And MNM takes the lead with that, putting it up to 2-3. After Cowana, well, again, they had an entry right there. It seemed like it could have been going their way, but just that Oryx, just that ability, that, as you said, it sounds so good, but is rarely to be seen.
How many times? How many times has an Oryx been on the board and you're like, this is what Oryx could do?
Every single time it's on the
It's
board,
like-
we explain it.
And finally we get to see Oryx do. And he do it so well. Oh, what a play there. And it is something, to be fair, in that round, it was really going away from them. Locked out. There was a kill in the middle of all of that. So it was a 4K, but still, you love to see it.
You love to see it indeed. We keep on mentioning it, like, this is the opportunity, this is the possibility. Look out for the Oryx potentially jumping up, and we get disappointed so often that it just doesn't happen, it doesn't work, or they don't want to press the trigger on it. And this time, when you least expect it, he jumps up and doesn't press the trigger, more importantly, but manages to get 4 kills afterwards.
All right, can we get an MNM 4-2-half, or is this going to turn into something a little bit even? If the statistics are to be involved, and if you put this in a spreadsheet and drag down, it would say it would be 3-3 based on previous data. You never really know when things can be pieced together. Sloth is already in once again. He's been very quick in making sure he can try and close down some physical pressure onto the top floor, and especially the top of White Stairs, which is, to be fair, a big part of a lot of holds on sites. It becomes a sort of cornerstone of rotation. However, he hasn't been massively successful in terms of actually trading out the entry. It's been the work of the rest of the players behind him, ready to get those frags.
That's it, right? As long as he has that physical presence, at least there's someone there to respond, while the rest of his team is starting to work onto the actual site. What you see here as well is cowana just pre-firing every single desk and cubicle you can find, and make sure that no one is going to be able, or no one is going to be hiding under there to go for a surprise. A big surprise, like we've seen in that last round when the Orc suddenly jumps up. He wasn't hiding underneath a desk. Now he just jumped up a hatch, maybe even 2, to get to the position where he was at.
A little bit of pace, a little bit of fire here over the top, as once again we see this extension of opening up the width, the chance of possibilities of a take. So far, we've generally seen most of the bodies of cowana go for a bit of a heavier push around green and white stairs, and with one on the garage. I'm curious to see if they pay a little bit more attention to blue here, where things started to go away from them. Last time, that hatch wasn't fully open, and it became a bit of a dangerous fight here for Grizzly, who's taken a step back and has waited for a bit more support. Neo has some survivability down there, but as the grenades start to rain, at this point you're sort of thinking, okay, only really a matter of time. The pings come through, the flashes to burn out the ADS on the backside. He knows he's got to try and do something to keep himself safe, and that is tucking himself in the corner as far as possible.
Now uses this, giving him some support with the cardiac sensor, but Gorgona just runs in, gets the kill, and well, exerts himself back out. And uses now knows as well, right, there's just a singular person in right now, opening up the default plant spot, but the rest is all up on that top floor, rotating around, using and utilizing these hedges to the fullest capabilities to make sure that they can lock down some of these angles and potentially go for a synchronized drop as well, as smokes and flashbangs are about to be tossed in, and trades happen all over the map.
Well, there it is. But you're seeing hot pings. Once again, this intel game from cowana has been able to get right in underneath, and that allows them to start this smoke plant and see if they can get behind the bomb chassis. The cover come through. And you do wonder where that is, but you also wonder if this is going to catch.
Oh,
no!
shot.
Caught out in the middle of the air, but the spray comes round. There's only a handful of seconds to get it off. It's Nello with a big gun. It's a C4 to secure it. They've just got to put their heads down and see if they can hold on. Once done that in the corridor. And it took a little bit more of a stretch. MNM finally thread 2 rounds in a row, just on the turn of the half.
The Nitro tossed in first, got taken out. Unfortunately for them, not able to find the target, but there was a second one that they did not expect, with Nello, of course, at the same time swinging white with the LMG as well, dragging away the attention of the hatch player, making sure that the cover cannot be there. And MNM, they find those 2 in a row, and they find themselves an advantage now with a 2-4 lead on the half swap. And now they will be on the attack. Something they have been practicing quite a lot on other maps so far today, but Bank is one that they are yet to have played. And this is where the trouble might come up. Have hidden it for a long time. The defense is often what you assume is the quote-unquote easiest if you are an established team. The attack is where it becomes more difficult. That is where you need to have everything go in the right way, and well, that's what we will get to see now. Is MNM going to be able to surprise in the attack and throw a complete curveball towards cowana after they picked this map, thinking that MNM despised it?
I mean, the best thing they could do right now is take a map that you didn't expect them to take. They probably came into this with, we can play this map, we're heated up, and we know the game that we have to put ahead of us.
Yeah.
it's, you know, everything is thrown together, and sometimes you get these results that are a little bit out of the order, but you've got to sort of signify the importance of if they are able to take bank. It allows them to have the momentum going into Cafe, a map that they picked, a map that they enjoy playing. But in the words of Fresh, this was a very predictable pick ban phase.
It is.
It's a lot that they both know.
It is as well, of course. It's the best of 5. You know that we're going to see 5 out of the 7 maps in a competitive map pool. And well, if you're just looking at the best maps of the opponents and the worst of your own, then you can already expect 1 or the 2 bans to come through. And that leaves us with the current veto that we do have. Uses, however, is the first drop, but Neo instantly gets a trade into Gorgona. So he takes 1, but he instantly gets picked up himself. Just looking at this side of cowana, still 3 Nitro cells available. And that probably means that they're willing to play that vertical game. Let them open up. Let them try and push in. They will be ready with a bit of explosives to try and respond to them.
The removal of the Jackal is probably a little bit more costly in terms of the growth of the round here than the Melusi, which you assume all of the gadgetry is already down. Gorgona was happy to try and take that fight and see what could come of it, and still, you've taken out the Jackal. You've severely limited a team that kind of needs it to control the rotation, the movement on a map that does allow that sort of movement to be, I guess, very punishing, as was demonstrated against them by users previously on the Oryx. Slot's happy to sort of sit in the position Nello was holding before, waiting for a bit of an approach, and Nello's going to try and do some groundwork to cut off his rotation, but muted out. It means he's going to have to be a little bit more than groundwork.
First kills coming in right here after the well, continuation of the round. It's Tyrant that picks up the very first. There's 80 seconds left, and right now they're trying to take control of the front of the towers. And as Benja wants to retake some ground that was lost by his fallen teammate, he's speaking out wide with the SMG-11, but it seems like he's gone unspotted. He's in a very key position right now, and as long as he does go under the radar here, has that opportunity to strike big and true. But as soon as he pops up, there will be 2 guns pointing in his direction, as it's going to be a Gemini replicator that will be punished. They now should be aware of the fact that one is right behind the teller's wall, and as a Nitro comes out, that should be picking up another kill. No, it got denied, it got shot out, and that means that MNM for now will live on.
This is one of those games that really put some fire into MNM before, and cowana are going to make sure that they keep it hot and spicy, but finally stopped. It's that idea of re-leaning back in. You lose space, you send another cowana player in to try and retake it. They did it quite a lot yesterday, and again, it kept on stumping MNM. There's Grizzly with a pretty easy pickup there on Nello that just did not expect it, but you look at the time, 20 seconds, a C4 and a Mozzie behind it, one-on-one. Where are you going to go, Solotov? You only just have enough time to try and make a drop here and make it happen inside the site. There's some awareness, and Arkic has pulled himself further and further back. Going to put the plant down for now, but it's hot pings, it's a pre-fire, and it's an Anarchic pickup.
Solotov did go off at the end there, wanted to go for the gunfight, but unfortunately was a little bit too late there. The Alba came through, was able to land the last couple bullets, and as a result, MNM lose that 1 round. cowana bring it back. It's 3 and 4 now. We continue to stay quite close to one another. However, MNM so far the only team that has been able to chain 2 in a row, and that is what might win them the game at the end. If they continue on the trading game that they have played so far, those 2 rounds in a row, they might be coming in clutch at the end here. As we're headed towards the top floor. CEO and the executive launch will be picked. It's the Nuck that comes out, and with that you somehow counter the Echo, as you will be able to come and sneak right past those drones. Of course, not while you're planting, because if you do anything to the environment, it will be deactivated. But if they use it as an active drone, you will be able to sneak past it.
First time we're seeing CEO today, first time we're going to get a taste of how this map might play in terms of the playbook for us. Obviously, we talked very briefly about how the band sort of put a little bit of pressure on mainly Kanto Corner, which becomes a little bit of an untrustworthy long arm. You can try and huck Selma towards it to get you that angle all the way down the backside, but it's a lot of focus around that elevator. It's a lot of focus around the utility that you assume to be stacked up there, and I guess what I might kind of hopeful here is from MNM potentially seeing a little bit more of direct focus against the loose players of cowana.
Yeah, for sure. Especially Benja able to sneak back and able to pick up 2 kills as a result as well. As of course, eventually what cost you a round like that. Of course, the trades continue, and of course you managed to bring it back to a 1-on-1, but when you've taken an advantage just then and losing it to a singular player who is able to pick up 2 kills as a result, and even pick up a third or at least try for one, that is definitely not something you'd like to have. And a Sloth opens up this time on Nello. That is also not very helpful.
No, it isn't. But there's at least some instant revenge. The player that I said was going to be one to try and pull out of the top of the elevators is found. They went a little bit too loose. Sloth is trying to pop as much pressure towards the big windows as possible. Obviously, one of the changes is not so many of those are ones that you can easily shoot through at this point, and it gives Sloth just a little bit more maneuverability on what was entirely a death spot behind the banana. Torrent with a slow creep up here of the Nooks, going to see if they can just get a bit of a bout of pressure here. Obviously, the more of a surprise factor they can be, you add a couple of grenades into that mix and it could be a huge catch. The second breath is taken, the second set of steps, the fully reinvigorated Gadget wanted to try and catch the loose player, but it was entirely caught out by Sloth, who, as I said, is a little bit safer in this new position.
Not quite sure if he was aware of it or just happened to look over to that side, but he gets yet another kill. It is Neo that gets taken out. He 1.5 here on the UMP, really helping him out as the drones are starting to come in. He knows one will be on that window now. Tarzan takes the fight as he hopes to get a very close angle on that player, but for now chooses to break contact, doesn't want to risk his life. It is important for them to stay alive as long as they possibly can. Soloto still playing in the rappel out here. He wants to find that player. He wants to find Sloth, who has been wreaking havoc to the side of MNM.
Well, there's the loose player. That's a quad. One more for the ace. You've been able to stack up so much with a heck of a gun here in the right hands, and, well, not a great gun in most others. Waiting for the swing either side of a doorway. There's a grenade that almost spells the end, gives a bit of a pain. There's the ace, though, and Sloth, I believe, the first ace all weekend from a player.
Could definitely be at least that we have seen here on the mainstream, and according to many, with the worst gun in the game as well. You'll remember the quote from Big Bad Nadian. I'm not going to be saying it here, but this is just going to be enough for people to realize. But it has a 1.5 now, and ever since, I think the UMP is a little bit more favorite. Or like more favored to be used by some of these players, because you can just challenge these long angles. There is a low recoil, you have that 1.5 or high recoil with slow fire rate, but due to that slow fire rate, it's perceived as a low recoil weapon. And right now, Sloth able to pick up that ace and equalize the score, 4-4. Now, cowana as well, 2 rounds in a row, looking to potentially go for 3 here, as that would definitely break up the whole momentum MNM had built previously.
So down to the basement, and it's the first time we'll get a taste of a team's third site, because although MNM were able to thread 2 at the end, it was at the end. We didn't get the full extension of their rotation of defensive sites, and to be fair, this was the top pick. So you wanted to see, I guess, that from cowana, and sure, we're getting a fight from MNM, but this should have been more of a game in hand, especially with the fact that it was this constant height, this constant fear of coming here from the pockets of MNM. An extension with the castle across the middle floor is going to give them some of that stretch. You can see the open hatches ready for some mobility, and to be fair, sometimes these defenses, they can be a little bit costly.
Definitely be costly indeed, and with the open hatches, you would be thinking back to the one round, of course, where we had the Oryx that got the quad kill. No Oryx on the board this time, however, it is for that top-down roam. If Benja, currently the only roamer on that top floor, I believe actually Grizzly might be there as well, receives a little bit too much pressure, they will drop through that hatch, fall back towards that first floor, and try it again. Waste as much time as you possibly can. Now, let's say you waste a minute per floor, for example. That is going to be leaving the attackers with a minute left to do their prep work for the actual sides and start hitting it as well.
MNM, they're going for a bit of approach here on open. They can see the footholes, which make this a bit of a dangerous pop-in, and now they can't see anything as the drone gets popped itself by Sloth, who, as pointed out by Easy, our fantastic observer, was on a 2-7 before that ace. So if there's anything to kickstart a player, especially one that can be as aggressive as Sloth, getting an ace is definitely one of the better bits of bolts of energy to get shoved into you before you start your approach or battling back the players. Grizzly drops down to open. They're just wasting and baying for some time here.
There's actually been some talks about players being demoted towards the UMP, but over this tournament we've seen quite some great plays coming from that gun. With Benja close around the corner, he's able to pick up Neo, and that's going to be one of the Heart Breachers gone. Actually, the Heart Breacher gone. I believe there is 2 can openers still in play for the side of MNM. That's all they have to work with. Luckily for them, most of the hatches have been opened up, so they don't really have to challenge anything with Heart Breach. However, it still hurts when you lose that first player, and it still hurts if it's your Heart Breacher.
It's a shame here. You can see, I guess, why this is a bit of a skittish map for MNM. Their approaches haven't really been as confident as we've seen them on other maps. They keep losing a handle on the Cowana players that are really free to run a bit rampant. You also compare it with how Cowana were quite adept at shutting down and clearing out those roamers when they're faced with the MNM. Apart from a single example, it became this sort of story that's selling itself more importantly here when they have to try and set the pace, when they have to try and go into what is turning into a bit of a bloodbath of every single approach that MNM has tried to make.
I said it before, right? The defense is what you won't really see teams falter on if they don't really like the map. The attack, that's where it all starts to break apart here. Is Sloth will be able to pick up yet another kill here with the UMP. Playing right behind the kitchen counter. He's going to get some pressure from Tyrant now, and as Tyrant doesn't actually spot him until later on. He does get that headshot clean off. Doesn't know, however, that there is still some members of Cowana quite close to him. Could be trying to retake as the defenders or the attackers have just recovered that diffuser.
I mean, it's 15 seconds. They don't really have any control. Benja's about to probably put a few bullets into a player here. They take a bit of a drop. There it is. And a timeout is called by MNM. Fair enough, to be honest, at this point. That's 3 rounds threaded in a row, and MNM just have not really been able to find any
for Cowana to reach a map point situation. But it's also an opportunity for MNM after the tactical timeout to try and do their best to show that, you know, the talks with their coach could still be as impactful as you'd like to hope, and with that, pick up a round or 2.
I think the easiest way of sort of phrasing it right now is it's a 5-4, which is a sort of double-edged sword in this situation because MNM aren't that far behind. One more round and suddenly it's level pegging. But you always have to take into consideration if this game had started with the other side reversed, if we had seen Cowana lead on their defense, it could, at this rate, be a 6-0 or a 5-1. It could have been an entirely different turn of force, which puts a very strange pressure on it, is they know their recent performance on attack. Cut off the first half of the game, you're 3-0 down.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you bring?
It's a big question, and we will see the answer soon. MNM need to find an attack, and after the previous 3 have been kind of meh, let's just put it like that, all you need is just everything to go right once, and suddenly you're back into it. Suddenly you know how it works, and you can work on that. There's a player outside, but he's going very aggressive right here, wasting some time. I thought he was going to be able to pick up the kill onto Neo as well, but Solotov actually picks him up. So a bit of over-aggression there. Gorgona might have thought they were repelled up on his side of the building. Not the case. And with that, the entry frag goes MNM's way.
Well, it's one of those gambles we talked about before. You go out that sort of space and you're expecting to die, and this time he wasn't able to get at least the trade for his efforts. Did some damage to Neo, but that was exactly the fight that we saw the last time around. The Jackal versus the Melusi. That time it was in the hands of somebody else, but still, the Jackal survives, and that gives them a very important lead-in. We've sort of talked about how they haven't quite been able to get a handle on these loose players. You look at the importance of an operator that has that ability, that has that innate gadget to limit where Cowana or what Cowana might be able to do, and suddenly you think, okay, maybe there is something that can be brought here by MNM.
When you're playing close with a shotgun, though, that is problematic. Shotgun, we know it, that it tears through people if you try and peek from a little bit too close. But instead, Benja decides to fall off, head towards that side, not play Janitor as close as they might, because grenades were about to be tossed in. As well, that Solotov comes in from the back right now. It's Benja that still gets the first kill with that shotgun, though. Uses drops, not quite sure where he was. Is he all the way outside? There he was, yeah, indeed. And that is quite a long angle he managed to get that kill from, so.
I think that's the way that, again, is synonymous with how Cowana like to play against MNM, is let's just keep leaning into them. Let's just keep leaning into these engagements and not let them ever really get comfy. And, well, maybe that's the lesson MNM is starting to learn here. After the team talk, they've been able to at least find these fights quite quick. They've been able to at least try and put this pressure on and force Cowana into a little bit more of their pace. But 40 seconds. They've still got to see if they can get that big wall open, and there is still these loose players on the roam. Grizzly caught out on the drone, moves away, gives him a little bit of food for thought, and has another chance to rotate. You're looking at that quad wall there across the side. It gets smoked out, but an Arkic's more than ready there to see if he can try and stop and bite back.
So at least to stop the view from the mirror window for now, as Grizzly's looking for a way to rotate back up. Benja will be caught off on the rotate. Here's Tyrant is descending the staircase now. Knows the second one could be coming up there. And MNM, they find a round here on Bank after the tactical timeout together with that Rios. Enough time to talk about what went wrong. And as they find the first entry with Gorgona jumping out, everything kind of seemed to go their way afterwards.
Okay, it was good. It was good from MNM in that it was a success. It was much better in controlling the pace. We have to look at, obviously, how much of that was cowana throwing themselves around the map and trying to cause some problems. And as I said, the conversation was they've done that a lot. MNM sort of twigging onto that, sort of pulling that idea of how do we stop this? Well, let's just be a little bit more controlled. You also have to take into consideration how cowana could sort of change up and shape up from that. They're more than happy to go to other sites. They're going to see if they can alter their play potentially, because this on the top floor was a tough one. It was a tough one. They never really found any ground, and that sort of hold and wait game on a site like this rather than the one inside it's tough to set up those angles and that inside and comfortably be there. You're looking at those windows outside, you're looking at square, where it's not an easy approach with the pressure that can come underneath. You don't have that same gambit to set up and catch the flanks.
No, for sure not. cowana, they need to, you know, just make some small additions here. I think if Gorgona wouldn't have jumped out the way he did, it could have been a different story here. It could have been them potentially picking up a round. I mean, that really enabled the side of MNM to catapult themselves into the round. They get that first, suddenly the trade game is on. You have that advantage. You can set yourselves up a little bit better than you would normally usually do. Sloth putting up a bulletproof camera inside the lobby. That one is going to be very difficult to take out from gunfire, so a knife is probably what will be reaching it. But the pressure not really coming out from the lobby side. So far, it seems like it's coming down from north mainly.
Alright, Sloth, once again, the place to try and put some pressure onto these windows. And at this point, you're wondering, MNM, what are you going to do in response? Because last time, let's say 3 to 4 of them were caught from the player inside. One of them was internal, and the rest was pick up there with a quick swing round onto the opposite staircase. They know it's a power position, and I think they've sort of learnt from that, because look at where the rest of MNM stacked themselves up this time. There's only really the single player here sort of keeping the lockdown, and they almost punished them for it. Sloth caught a bit unaware because the pressure's coming from the other side. Solitov finds him. And you compare the importance of that player and that player, how much he stuck it to them last time, and what else this gives MNM now.
There is still going to be a small inconvenience there on the side. I was going to say a stock, but Benja gets picked up by a grenade. It's just Gorgona now that has that shield, but as the angles are opening up right next to him as well, there's going to be this tight angle he needs to fall back from. Gets one kill as the opening continues to happen, but he will be traded out in the end. The diffuser can be recovered, and that leaves us in a 2-on-4 situation.
Well, there was the player underneath there with the C4. They didn't quite get the catch, but it gives them some awareness. Maybe we can pop and push some pressure onto the site. Grizzly backed into the corner by Kanto in the elevators, waiting for an approach round on the side. Still, you assume has Echo drones and has an Echo gun. Down long, gets one, gets refragged. 1:10 left on the clock, and it's a 3 versus 1, and Arkic's been able to get himself closer from the position he was at before, but obviously used the C4. Won't be able to really get a read in here, and as most of the castle and structures still stay within the map, well, we don't even see it so far. MNM suddenly finds some fury after the timeout, and they call themselves back in to control and back on to map point.
That's it. They learned from the mistakes. They found out the ways how cowana held the sides before, and they managed to turn it around in a tactical timeout, find ways to deal with them, and did so successfully. 5-6 is then the current score. MNM, maybe against popular belief after how the second half was starting to unfold, is the one that now has a map point. The staff room in the open area will be the site chosen by cowana to try and mount this defense to push us to overtime. And the question here will be, how successful is it going to be? The Zero comes out as well. They need those extra chems. They want that extra information, probably around the lobby, probably around that top floor as well, to stop any potential flanks to come in and haunt them.
I love that the Zero is being brought for 2 reasons. One, they used it really, really well. When they were sort of playing this map before, there was an effectiveness about that sort of gathering on information. Bank has big sweeping spaces. You can sort of pop it in. So I'm talking about when I'm talking the use of it over yesterday, the play that we saw it, not in generally MNM, but still, the point is more about Zero. And then you compare what's just been removed. Jackal, what has he done for MNM?
Not much.
Not much to nothing.
I don't think he's been spotting many feet.
No, I don't think he's really spotted any that we've seen, and it's a fair play because you're still getting the same sort of idea of let's get some intel.
Yeah.
And it's not as strictly rewarding.
No.
But Jackal offered no rewards. So why not go with this alternate? Why not go with an operator who has these vast spaces you can take control of?
And don't forget as well, you have that 1 sep per chem that you can use to take out PC utility with. Let's say mute jammers, let's say mirror windows, for example, that you can destroy with them. That makes them a little bit more valuable as well as the Inox scanner. Even though that is a bit oppressing to these players, doesn't necessarily mean that it's impossible to play against. Whereas if you're quick with the Argus, you can shoot it through the floor, you can shoot it through the ceiling, or actually through a reinforced wall. You have the opportunity to take out one of those utility pieces.
So we just had a drone get snagged, and you sort of hope that wasn't the Twitch drone in the pocket of users there as the dialogue came close to him and he popped off. That could be a little bit tragic if that's one of the ones currently sitting in the pocket of the Aussie. The drones, they're steadying their way here around the big lobby itself. The eyes under the spiral staircase as we're seeing MNM stack themselves up. Cowana aren't leaning in. And it's sort of a first for this approach now. Usually they've been thirsting for the fights themselves, but this time they've sort of found themselves a little bit overfull of the fights with MNM in the past 2 rounds. If I'm going to talk about how they were only 1 away from leveling now, Cowana are in the same boat, but theirs is a much more important one as it's trying to rocket and keep it steady to map point.
Yeah, that's that point, right? It's gonna be a map point that is up here for MNM, and if they lose this round on Cowana, we're headed towards a map 2 where, well, Cowana had the opportunity to pick map 1. That was Bank, but they should lose it. That surely puts the perspective into MNM's eyes right there. And as grenades are being used, there's still that player inside the janitor that is yet to be droned out. It seems like they're unaware of that presence, and that could be detrimental here. Tyrant absolutely doesn't know. There could be a wallbang. How do they not drone it out? Surely someone should be aware of that one.
They're still steady, and they're a little bit stuck, and that's the big problem right now. They've been able to play these great grenades and plays before, but as Gorgona gets caught out at the bottom of the blue stairs, Solotov's going to use this time to open up a more direct line to the site itself. Going to see if they can catch the loose Maestro player who's just tucked in on that corner. It's an important position, often played very, very well by Anarchic. He's sort of waiting for the fight to come through, but until it does, there's nothing Cowana have to do. And again, this is a change of pace that they've not really played before. They still have a roam presence underneath, but it has entirely been a little bit more sort of placid. They're not going to make sure they're first into the fights this time. Grizzly suffers a bit, but with Nella knocking on the door, it's now or never MNM.
There you have it. Neo takes the very first gunfight. Benja, who was above, managed to rotate out and wanted to play the closed window. Gorgona finds one, but MNM finds more. It's a 2-on-4 situation as we have one rotation down to the bottom floor, but it's only up to Gorgona now. A 1-on-4 clutch as he rotates up the main stairs. Finds the first, finds the second. It's a triple kill for him, and in the meantime, the plant will be going down. Nello will be putting 45 seconds on the board. He doesn't follow the rat ping, actually, and that means it's a 1-on-2 situation now with 45 seconds on the clock. We don't even get that far. It's MNM that will win it. It's MNM that gets map number 1. And Cowana, they just fell short here. Bank, by the way, Nello, just quickly putting up some fire onto the oil right there.
I didn't see it.
I did see it. It was the chat going off right there.
I saw the good halves.
UK banter, I guess.
Okay, the UK banter. I saw the good halves. But I mean, it was